Chapter 421, Emissary of Pestilence. A man emerged from the shadows. He was shrouded in a pitch-black cloak and held a scepter in his right hand. The instant Mo Wu laid eyes on this man, his back went cold with sweat. A sinister air gathered in the room. I was looking for the kid who foiled our plans, but I never expected to run into an administrator and one of you loathsome Shrek people. I might as well kill you while I'm here and take the administrator with me. Soul rings rose from beneath the man. However, unlike the usual way soul rings would appear, his materialized in an eerie green mist. He had 6 soul rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 2 black. The mist spread to surround him. A chill went down Wu Zhangkong's spine, and he pushed Mo Wu behind him. An evil soul master. Mo Wu didn't try to flee. As a government official, his willpower had to be strong. He also understood that the safest place he could be right now was beside this teacher from Shrek Academy. Running would be useless, and if Wu Zhangkong couldn't defeat this evil soul master, then his fate was sealed. You may call me the emissary of pestilence. The man raised his scepter, his soul rings lighting up. Green mist poured out of it and began to fill the entire room. Wu Zhangkong snorted. A freezing aura exploded from him as soul rings appeared from beneath his feet. A total of 7 appeared, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 3 black. The Skyfrost sword manifested in his hand and he slashed at the air, sending a sword beam straight for his opponent's stomach. The emissary trembled in shock at the sight of Wu Zhangkong's soul rings, but he didn't leave himself unprotected. He pointed his scepter forward. The green gem at the tip of the scepter shined as it met the sword beam. A crisp note could be heard as sword beam met scepter. The beam split into countless threads of ice. It was Frost's scar. After gaining his 7th soul ring and becoming a soul sage, Wu Zhangkong had grown far stronger than before. In the past half a year, apart from teaching, all he had done was cultivate. He had progressed by leaps and bounds. Wu Zhangkong's frigid aura slowed the emissary of pestilence's movements, and a storm of frost scars quickly enveloped him. Excellent. The emissary of pestilence howled. He dropped to one knee, and a green light exploded from his body. The light expanded like a gas, pushing back Wu Zhangkong's frigid aura. If Wu Zhangkong had been alone, he would have been able to just use his soul power to protect himself and charged in. However, Mo Wu was there. Mo Wu would die in an instant if he were exposed to the poison mist of a 6-ring soul master. Wu Zhangkong had to protect him. Icy determination flashed in Wu Zhangkong's eyes. He burst into action and kicked at a wall, breaking it down in one strike. He grabbed hold of Mo Wu, hoisted him in his left arm, and leapt into the air. With his free hand, he brandished the Skyfrost sword and used Frost Song, willing it to transform into an enormous sword. Mo Wu watched in awe as an enormous crescent of ice slashed through the room they were just in, cleaving it in two and sucking in all of the green mist. When the dust settled, the emissary of pestilence was nowhere to be seen. The only thing that remained was a tunnel leading to the unknown. Don't move. An electronic voice cut through the air. Guards had been alerted by the commotion, and over a dozen mechas came flying over. Spotlights lit up and illuminated Wu Zhangkong as the mechas completed their encirclement. All of them locked onto him with their soul cannons. Wu Zhangkong released Frost Song and frowned. His encounter with the evil soul master weighed on his mind. Evil soul masters had begun to stir in recent years. It was clear that they were behind this recent act of terrorism as well. He had to report this matter to Shrek Academy as soon as possible. Since its very conception, Shrek Academy opposed evil soul masters. 10,000 years ago, the spirit-eyed Douluo led his generation of the Shrek 7 monsters, along with many other powerhouses, to destroy the holy spirit cult. The cult was wiped out and no more trouble arose from them, until the past few years at least. Don't shoot. Mo Wu shouted. This man is a soul sage from Shrek Academy. He saved me. Wu Zhangkong awoke from his thoughts. He looked down at Mo Wu, who was dangling by his coat. With a flick of his wrist, Wu Zhangkong pulled him upright. Mo Wu quickly regained his stately appearance and ordered the mechas to stand down. Standard issue military mechas wouldn't be able to touch a hair on a soul sage from Shrek Academy anyway. Mo Wu had no doubt that Wu Zhangkong was a battle armor master. Even if there were 10 times as many mechas present, he would still be able to obliterate them all. I can't accept any missions without my badge. Tang Wuling asked. Knock it off, kid. You're holding up the line. The Blacksmiths Association clerk responded tersely. When a young boy came asking to take on some 4th-rank blacksmithing missions, the clerk had thought it was a joke. The boy didn't even have a badge. There was no way he could allow this boy to accept any missions. Could I trouble you to look me up in the database then? I'm certain you'll find me in there. I'm a 5th-rank blacksmith. Please, I'm absolutely certain I'm in there. Huh? 5th rank? The clerk laughed. The people behind Tang Wuling laughed as well. Heaven Dou Blacksmiths Association was the headquarters of the Blacksmiths Association, as well as the largest one on the continent. Countless blacksmiths were based in Heaven Dou City and came to accept missions every day. All the clerks were busy from dusk until dawn. Just how old are you, kid? A gruff blacksmith asked as he moved to pat Tang Wuling's head. Tang Wuling evaded the man's hand. He was at a loss. He didn't realize how inconvenient things would be without his badge. He had already been pestering the clerk for 10 minutes now, and had been subject to the jeering of the surrounding blacksmiths. The man's insulting question incited Tang Wuling's childish nature. I'm 14. What about it? A 14-year-old, 5th-rank blacksmith? Huh? You must be the number 1 genius in the entire association. The man burst into laughter, and his fellow blacksmiths quickly joined in. Tang Wuling took a deep breath, then turned back to the clerk. What do I need to do to accept some missions? The clerk looked at him helplessly. Kid, I admire your passion, but you're causing a disturbance. Where are your parents? You're at the right age to start learning how to blacksmith, so come back when you've got your badge. Then you can accept some missions. Where can I take the blacksmith's exam? Tang Wuling was growing impatient. You want to take the exam? All right. Go to the 2nd floor to register for a slot. There are a lot of people today though. At that moment, a ringing sound filled the hall, alerting everyone that an announcement was being made. Attention all blacksmiths. Attention all blacksmiths. The president will be holding a half-hour lecture in the hall of the 1st floor in 5 minutes. Please wait in orderly lines. Ah. The gruff blacksmith cried. The president. The man rushed off, and everyone else also began to realize what was happening. Regardless of whether they were accepting a mission or waiting in line, they all turned around and ran off. They were currently on the 3rd floor, but all were undoubtedly headed for the 1st. Even the clerk was gone. Tang Wuling hastened to catch up, and once he reached the clerk, he asked, Uncle, what's going on? Does the president lecture often? The clerk spoke as he ran. The president lectures at random times, and he only does so here in our Heaven Dou branch. A lot of blacksmiths come here every day and hang around hoping he'll hold a lecture. Attending a single one of the president's lectures is worth a year of blacksmithing by yourself. Is the association president here really that amazing? Tang Wuling could hardly believe it. He was certain that the president of any city's branch could only measure up to his teacher at best. The clerk stared at him. You foolish kid. Don't you love blacksmithing? This is an amazing opportunity for you. The president isn't just the president of this branch, but the Blacksmiths Association as a whole. He's also the continent's only divine blacksmith. He's a very busy person. If he takes the time out of his schedule to give a lecture, just think about how valuable that must be. You're really lucky. Just follow me to the hall, listen closely, and don't be noisy. Chapter 422, The Divine Blacksmith. A divine blacksmith. Tang Wuling's heart raced at the thought. His mind buzzed with excitement. Yeah. I can't believe I got so lucky. I came here to make money, but I get a lecture from a divine blacksmith instead. Awesome. I can't do anything about the duration of the exam, but I can't let this chance slip away. The hall of the 1st floor was already packed by the time Tang Wuling and the clerk arrived. At the center of the hall, a space 20 meters in diameter had been left empty. It was fully furnished with all the necessary equipment to forge. Everyone was bustling with excitement and expectation. The clerk could only manage to bring Tang Wuling to the edge of the crowd. Although Tang Wuling was tall, the blacksmiths in the crowd were all muscular giants. He couldn't see above the sea of heads at all. Tang Wuling ducked and squirmed his way through the crowd, slowly heading to the center. Kid, be careful. Don't squeeze in. You're going to get trampled. The clerk shouted after him, but he was already gone. Tang Wuling pushed on through. Despite how lean he was built, his frame hid monstrous strength. With that strength in controlling crane, capturing dragon, he quickly reached the center of the crowd and got a front row spot. Tang Wuling was surrounded on all sides with blacksmiths bursting with anticipation. No one even noticed a kid like him sneak to the front. 5 minutes soon passed, and the crowd split to allow a man walk through to the center. A retinue of staff surrounded the man, and everyone cheered when they saw him. President. President, they shouted zealously. The hall seemed to boil into a frenzy. Tang Wuling looked over to see a handsome man with black hair and black eyes. He looked to be in his 30s, but his eyes showed profound depths far beyond his ears. His sideburns were completely white, a bright contrast with the rest of his black hair. But the most eye-catching thing about him were his hands. They were at least 50% larger than an ordinary man's, but instead of being bulky and rough, they were slender and fair. They looked like the hands of a young lady, but much larger. In fact, his hands sparkled like jade. This man was a divine blacksmith, the greatest blacksmith in the entire Blacksmiths Association, and a title Douluo. He couldn't compare with Feng Wuyu in terms of combat strength, of course, but Trek Blacksmiths Association had never concerned itself with the Continental Blacksmiths Association anyway. He's Zhenhua, the continent's only divine blacksmith. As a blacksmith himself, Tang Wuling had long since heard of Zhenhua. He was a legend among blacksmiths. Contrary to his youthful appearance, he was actually 45. He had become a divine blacksmith at the age of 37, and that had been 8 years ago. He was in his prime as a blacksmith, but even in his youth, he hadn't been arrogant. He was originally the president of a small town's Blacksmiths Association. From there, he advanced step by step until he became the president of all of the Blacksmiths Associations across the continent, and the continent's only divine blacksmith. He had wanted to forge a four-word battle armor when he was a saint blacksmith, and with the help of some titled Douluos and countless hours at the forge, he barely succeeded. However, the product could not be called true four-word battle armor. It was at the pseudo four-word level at best. He only truly succeeded 8 years ago when he became this generation's divine blacksmith. After that, he began forging four-word battle armors for titled Douluos. Being the sole divine blacksmith, he held an exceptionally influential position. Tang Wuling's eyes sparkled as he watched this legendary figure. He would be fortunate to learn even the tiniest thing from him. Hello, everyone. Zhenhua waved his arms at the crowd. Hundreds of voices overlapped in a deafening greeting. Hello, President. Zhenhua gestured for everyone to quiet down, and the hall immediately went silent. It was as if the sound had never occurred in the first place. Now this is true prestige. Zhenhua smiled. I don't have much time, so I'll begin immediately. I've been really busy lately, and it's been quite some time since my last lecture. Today, I'll explain some of my deeper understandings to all of you. I encourage you to go and test what you glean from my lecture on your own time. He walked over to the forging table as he spoke and placed his large hands on the table. This is a little trick for alloy forging I discovered not too long ago. As everyone knows, forging alloys is an important stage for us blacksmiths. You can start forging alloys at the 6th rank, and as you progress, you become able to forge alloys composed of more and more metals. Of course, the more metals added, the harder the forging process becomes. This trick I'm about to teach you, well, it's really a technique. This technique can lower the difficulty of forging alloys. It can be said that this technique is derived from melding, or the way catalysts work. Different metals have different characteristics, and when two metals come together, there is always some sort of chemical reaction. For example, Zhenhua explained his thoughts in a clear and gentle voice, and everyone grew calm as they listened. They did their best to commit the details of this trick to memory. Tang Wuling grew more and more amazed as he listened. He had heard of a similar technique from Mu Chen, but since he hadn't reached the 6th rank yet and could only forge two metal alloys, he wasn't ready for it. Mu Chen hadn't explained the technique then, and now that Tang Wuling was hearing about it from Zhenhua, he felt as if everything was clicking into place. He had been practicing alloy forging for the past half year, so this lecture couldn't have come at a better time. His understanding of alloy forging deepened, and countless possibilities opened up to him. And so, by mixing this in, your workload will decrease, and the chances of your alloy being successfully forged will increase significantly. Zhenhua smiled as he concluded his lecture. Amazing. A young voice applauded. Until this point, the audience had been watching with quiet reverence. So, when this voice suddenly obliterated the silence, everyone turned to look at its owner. In reality, most blacksmiths didn't really understand the underlying concepts behind alloy forging. Blacksmiths of the 6th rank and above were rare after all. However, such knowledge would still be helpful for any blacksmith's future growth. In fact, many made a pilgrimage to Heaven Dou City just to listen to the divine blacksmith's lectures. Therefore, it was blasphemy for someone to cheer so loudly. When everyone saw the owner of the voice, they were dumbstruck. It was a kid still in his teens. Zhenhua was astonished by the excitement shining in Tang Wuling's large, bright eyes. He gave him a warm smile. Did you understand my lecture, Airman? Tang Wuling nodded. He was currently absorbed in his thoughts, pondering the concepts he just learned, his mind in a world of its own, just like when he forged. He didn't notice the peculiar gazes of his peers at all. What a heroic child. Zhenhua chuckled. Excellent. It looks like the future of our Blacksmiths Association will be a bright one indeed. Chapter 423. Can I try? President, can I try? Tang Wuling bubbled with excitement. The concepts Zhenhua had introduced were already mixing with what he understood about alloy forging, but he still needed to put it all to the test. His was itching to give them a try. Zhenhua stared at Tang Wuling in astonishment. You want to try forging an alloy? Hushed whispers spread throughout the crowd. The clerk who had led Tang Wuling here was already pressing a hand to his face. This kid. He's got too much courage for his own good. He's just like a newborn calf in front of a tiger. Tang Wuling nodded, taking a step forward. President, may I? Zhenhua smiled. If you think you can, then sure. The clerk ran over Tang Wuling, squatted down, and whispered, Kid, stop causing trouble. Just get out of here already. The president still has many matters to attend to. Zhenhua chuckled. Just let him come. It wouldn't be right for us to trample over a child's passion for blacksmithing. I can tell from his eyes. His love for blacksmithing is real. Come here, child. Tang Wuling hadn't even glanced at the clerk. His eyes had been glued to Zhenhua the entire time. He ran over to Zhenhua's side and began speaking immediately. I need some heavy silver, star iron, and that universal catalyst you talked about, the sky moon powder. All right. Bring him what he asked for, Zhenhua said, gesturing to some of his staff members. Tang Wuling surprised him. In addition to a deep-rooted passion for blacksmithing, his eyes showed unwavering confidence. Not even the tiniest bit of stage fright could be seen on his face. The blacksmiths in the audience shared in Zhenhua's surprise, but to Zhenhua, none of them had so much as a fraction of Tang Wuling's steadiness. Someone as excited as Tang Wuling currently was would usually at least be trembling, but Tang Wuling was steady as a rock. Zhenhua also noticed that the boy's hands were larger than average, and his fingers moved in a steady patterns. This was a clear identifier of an experienced blacksmith, a sign of Tang Wuling's deep understanding of blacksmithing. Very few things could catch Zhenhua's attention, but now his interest was piqued. He wanted to see just how high this child could reach. The Blacksmiths Association did not lack any metals whatsoever. Everything Tang Wuling asked for was quickly delivered to the forging area that had been set up in the hall of the first floor. Tang Wuling didn't stand on ceremony and immediately got to work. He walked over to the back of the forging table and opened it up. He put two pieces of metal into it, adjusted the calcining temperature, and turned the table on. Then he turned to Zhenhua. President, could I trouble you for one more thing? Zhenhua smiled warmly. What is it? May I borrow your hammers? The entire audience went into an uproar. Borrowing another blacksmith's hammers was rarely seen in the world of blacksmiths, not to mention the hammers of the world's only divine blacksmith. Zhenhua was stunned as well. This kid is really interesting. Tang Wuling had no other choice. At this moment, he was completely broke. All of his worldly possessions confiscated by his teachers. Even his 1,000 refined tungsten hammers had been taken. Okay, Zhenhua answered. He muttered a few words to himself, and a pair of hammers appeared in his hands in a flash of light. He handed them to Tang Wuling. The hammers glistened in the light, their shape completely adhering to orthodox methods. However, they were a rarely seen white. In addition to that, blue clouds danced across the surfaces of both hammers, giving them an aura of mystical beauty. They're spirit-refined hammers. Tang Wuling ascertained this with a single glance. The hammers were forged from spirit-refined cloud gold, an alloy composed of cloud copper and platinum crystal. Considering the fact that the hammers were crafted from a spirit-refined alloy, he could only imagine how much better they were compared to his own spirit-refined heavy silver hammers. I forged these hammers 15 years ago, and they've been with me ever since, Zhenhua said. I used them all the way until I could soul refine. See how they feel in your hands. If you really manage to forge an alloy today, I'll give them to you as a gift. Although he didn't believe Tang Wuling would succeed, he still wanted to encourage him. He himself had set a new record when he became the youngest 6th rank blacksmith in the world at 18 years of age. He knew from experience that such miracles were possible, and wasn't as critical of Tang Wuling as the rest of the crowd. He could also sense that Tang Wuling had a solid foundation in blacksmithing, yet he couldn't fathom why Tang Wuling didn't have his own forging hammers with him. A blacksmith's hammers were their life. A proper blacksmith would never be without them. This was one of the first things a blacksmith learned. Thank you. Tang Wuling gripped the hammers, one in each hand, then closed his eyes. When the staff and blacksmiths of the fourth rank and higher saw how easily he held the hammers, astonishment crept onto their faces. Cloud gold was famous for its density. While the two hammers forged from cloud gold may have looked light, they were anything but. In fact, they weighed over 200 kilograms. Strength was critical for blacksmiths. Zhenhua lent these hammers to Tang Wuling as a test, yet Tang Wuling held them up with no difficulty at all. They were steady in his hands, as if he were merely holding a pair of ordinary hammers. This kid is actually a blacksmith? Everyone in the crowd could hardly believe their eyes. At that moment, Tang Wuling pressed the button on the side of the forging table, and a glowing piece of heavy silver rose to the table's surface. He tapped it lightly with the hammer in his left hand. A melodic note rang out, echoing throughout the hall. Tang Wuling froze after that tap. His brow furrowed. His ears twitched slightly as he listened to how the metal answered him. The faint smile on Zhenhua's face finally cracked as he witnessed this. The lower-level blacksmiths in the hall might not have understood what Tang Wuling was doing, but as a divine blacksmith, it was impossible for him to not. Tang Wuling was listening to the heavy silver, conversing with the metal and deepening his understanding of it. But, more importantly, he was listening to the voice of the hammer. Forging with hammers they had never touched before was a massive challenge for a blacksmith. Listening to a hammer's voice was one way for a blacksmith to get familiar with it. Only after understanding the character of a hammer could a blacksmith use it. Zhenhua had been testing Tang Wuling from the moment he handed the boy his hammers. The weight was merely the first part of the test. How Tang Wuling would use these hammers was the next, more important part. He's so young. He couldn't be older than 15 or 16, even if he isn't able to forge an alloy yet. He may be a promising successor. Let's see just how talented he is. The cloud gold hammers were the best test. Zhenhua wanted to see if Tang Wuling could bring out their full potential. These hammers were blood bonded to Zhenhua and contained a piece of himself in them. They possessed a special effect similar to the stacked hammers effect of Tang Wuling's heavy silver hammers. Tang Wuling's first strike was flawless. The resultant ringing made his eyes go wide with realization. Tremor, golden light flashed in Tang Wuling's eyes, and he struck down with the left hammer once more. This time, it descended upon the metal like thunder. A boom tore through the hall when the hammer struck the glowing red piece of heavy silver. Yet it did not rebound off the metal. The hammer remained firmly pressed to the heavy silver, and a moment later, a low hum began to fill the hall. This was the tremor effect of the cloud gold hammers. The hammers harnessed the power of the vibrations that came from hammering metal to assist their wielder. Tremor was a high-grade effect, just like stacked hammers. Tang Wuling kept the hammer pressed tightly to the heavy silver to bring out the tremor effect's full power. The crowd went silent. That strike was testament to Tang Wuling's strength. The fact that he could wield the cloud gold hammers and prevent them from rebounding off the metal showed that his arms were strong enough to handle the recoil. Furthermore, the fact that he was able to stabilize the hammer showed how firm his blacksmithing foundation was. Zhenhua nodded in approval, a genuine smile forming on his lips. This kid is remarkable. 3 seconds later, Tang Wuling lifted the hammer and struck again. Chapter 424, shocking the divine blacksmith. A thunderous crash shook the room. A spray of powder burst from the heavy silver. This was proof of the tremor effect at work. It could vibrate impurities out of a metal. Although the result was simple, this wasn't something that just anybody could do. In order to bring out the full potential of this effect, a blacksmith needed to possess overwhelming strength, a firm foundation of soul power, immense spiritual power, and a deep understanding of the metal they were forging. If the blacksmith did not fulfill even one of these requirements, it would be impossible for them to use tremor effectively. In fact, the tremor effect could even become a disadvantage, and Tang Wuling's second strike used it to his advantage. A third strike followed, then a fourth, and then a fifth. 3 seconds separated each one. As he watched the boy in front of him forge away, Zhenhua's amicable smile gradually grew concerned. A trace of doubt flickered in his eyes. Tang Wuling continued hammering, and soon enough, his seventh strike landed. The heavy silver trembled, and in a flash of light, the impurities were separated. It was 100 refined. It only took him 7 strikes 100 refine the heavy silver. Zhenhua straightened his back slightly, and the more knowledgeable blacksmiths in the audience gaped. As a divine blacksmith, Zhenhua could easily 100 refine a piece of metal with a single strike. A child in his teens had done it in 7. It was then that Tang Wuling finally moved his right hand. He pressed a button to reveal the star iron, which had just finished calcining, and struck down with his right hammer. The blow sent tremors through the star iron. He's dual forging. The clerk who led Tang Wuling here was already speechless. He couldn't have possibly imagined that a teenage boy like Tang Wuling could be so skilled. This child is actually dual forging, and he's dual forging 2 different metals at that. Even if he's just 100 refining them, that's a feat only a 3rd or 4th ranked blacksmith would be capable of. Both of Tang Wuling's hammers crashed down, forging both the heavy silver and the star iron simultaneously. Every strike shook the hearts of the spectating blacksmiths. Blow after blow thundered throughout the hall, and Tang Wuling's world shrunk down to just him and the metals. He was itching to put what he just learned about alloy forging into practice. He wanted to test it out and deepen his understanding. The itch began at the back of his consciousness at first, but as he continued forging both metals, it grew in intensity until, finally, he felt as if he were about to explode. Everyone stared in shock as Tang Wuling hammered the metals with unbelievable might. Another droning hum, a fraction different in pitch, soon filled the hall to overlap with the first. 2 lights shot into the air, one a resplendent silver, and the other a coalescence of countless specks of starlight. The two combined, rising 6 feet into the air as a 2-colored beam. It illuminated the whole, a magnificent sight that bathed the onlookers in a bright glow for one moment and faded to nothing in the next. 2 hammers. 2 metals, and both metals were first grade 1000 refined with spirit. It was plenty amazing for the light of 1000 refining to ascend 5 feet into the air. Yet the child before everyone's eyes had simultaneously refined 2 metals and summoned light that reached 6 feet high. That was the sign of a fabled Saint grade 1000 refining, a feat that only Saint blacksmiths should have been able to achieve. Tang Wuling didn't notice the reactions of the audience. In truth, this result was thanks to the cloud gold hammers he had borrowed. They were a spectacular pair of hammers that had accompanied Zhenhua for many years. They had taken in some of his strength, which bolstered the tremor effect. Tang Wuling had been absorbing some of Zhenhua's essence every time he swung the hammers. He was also in perfect condition. This combination of factors helped him to just barely succeed in a Saint grade 1000 refining. However, he was not done yet. 3 purple soul rings rose up from beneath Tang Wuling. Soul power coursed through his body and into the cloud gold hammers. A cloudy, misty aura immediately materialized around the hammers. A breath of life came from them, and they suddenly grew lighter. As a result, Tang Wuling was able to wield them even faster than before. The hammers moved in perfect sync, closing in on the pair of 1000 refined metals like lightning. They struck with a resounding boom, smashing the 2 metals together. The hardest part was over. From that point on, it would be smooth sailing. Every strike of the cloud gold hammers held tremendous power and smashed the 2 metals closer and closer together. Tang Wuling used each blow to pour both life force and soul power into the metals, washing them from the inside out. The beam of light that stemmed from the 2 metals began warp, and the separate colors started intermingling and fusing together. It was time to start forging the alloy. The entire crowd collectively gasped. Where did this kid come from? He's actually attempting to forge an alloy. Just how old is he? Not even the president could forge alloys at such a young age. It doesn't look like this is his first time doing this either. If it were up to the higher ranked blacksmiths, they would have spirit refined the metals then used both to forge an alloy. Yet Tang Wuling chose a different approach. He had jumped right to forging the alloy after 1000 refining the metals. In the end, however, he ended up choosing this approach because of his weak soul power. He would deal with spirit refining the metals once they had actually been forged into alloys. This was all for the sake of his one-word battle armor after all. Heavy silver and star iron were needed to forge star silver, an alloy he needed to craft the rest of his one-word battle armor set in the future. To that end, 1000 refined metal would be sufficient for the time being. He could think about spirit refining once he was more powerful and skilled. Besides, forging alloys was a walk in the park for him now. Tang Wuling didn't dare spirit refine the metals because the cloud gold hammers didn't belong to him. He feared that the finished product wouldn't be complete as if he did. He had actually considered spirit refining the alloy as well, but the chances of success weren't too high. Furthermore, his current priority was to learn Zhenhua's alloy forging technique. As Zhenhua watched Tang Wuling assault the metals, metals like a raging tempest, he subconsciously stepped forward to get a better look at the metals on the table. The heavy silver and star iron gradually fused into one, their resplendent auras merging together as well. Tang Wolin maintained a steady forging tempo. His upper body never stopped moving, but his lower body remained an unshakable foundation. He didn't move a single inch from where he stood. Tang Wolin's 3 soul rings thrummed in the hall, giving off a gentle light that seemed to envelop him. He's a 3-ring soul elder, and all of his rings are purple. No one dared ridicule Tang Wolin now. The gruff blacksmith who had voiced his doubts about Tang Wolin earlier was now staring at the scene before him with a blank expression. He was a 3rd-rank blacksmith in the middle of delving into the mysteries of thousand refining. Tang Wolin, on the other hand, popped out of nowhere and showed off his skill as a 4th-rank blacksmith. I can't believe I was mocking him. All of Tang Wolin's focus was on the 2 metals. He stared at them with rapt attention, watching every reaction as they fused. As he hummed away, he brought forth the sky moon powder, sprinkling it over the metals in between strikes. The powder coated the heavy silver and the star iron as they slowly mixed together. The results of this turned out just as Zhen Hua had said they would. The metals became tougher and harder to forge, but the chance of failure drastically decreased. That was when Tang Wolin began to forge faster. The hardest part about forging an alloy was preserving the spiritual nature of the component metals used. Blacksmiths couldn't let the spirit of the metals die, so they needed to use their spiritual power to protect the metals. Zhen Hua's technique made this part of the process much easier, and all it required was sky moon powder. Tang Wolin could sense the profoundness of what was happening with the 2 metals. It didn't take long before they completely fused into one alloy. The barest hints of a star silver's splendor could now be seen, but at that moment, Tang Wolin withdrew his soul rings. Zhen Hua broke out into a cold sweat. Did his soul power run out? But then a golden soul ring appeared, and he sensed Tang Wolin's blood essence go wild. Chapter 425, Creating Trouble. If this were any other alloy, Tang Wolin wouldn't have needed to bring out his golden soul ring. However, he was forging this piece of star silver for his own use. He needed to bind his flesh and blood to it by injecting it with his blood essence. Then, once it was made into a piece of his battle armor, it would be even more compatible with him. A golden ore enveloped the cloud gold hammers, and Tang Wolin hammered his blood essence into the emerging piece of star silver. Ear-splitting booms shook the hall as he pounded away at the fusing metals. Every strike possessed tremendous weight and speed. The forging table trembled from the shock. The star silver gradually shrank under the weight of each blow. Tang Wolin struck down with both hammers at once. He let out a draconic roar as a pair of golden lights flowed through each of the cloud gold hammers and into the star silver. An illusory dragon soared out of the metal, spiraling up into the air. All the while the star silver twinkled bright with ample shine, its surface touched by specks of starlight in the shape of a dragon. That dragon was Tang Wolin's personal brand on the metal. Tang Wolin was beyond pleased with the results. He roared for a full minute before settling in silence. In his eyes burned inextinguishable flames. He had the instinctive impression that he had broken through a boundary as a blacksmith. His growth was tremendous, and his alloy forging success rate would undoubtedly eclipse the one prior. He did it. He really did it. He forged a spirit alloy. Zhen Hua stared with his brows furrowed. Thank you for lending me your hammers. I understand the technique now. Thank you for teaching me, Tang Wolin said respectfully to Zhen Hua. The strong were no stranger to secrets, and blacksmiths were not excluded from this rule of life. A good forging technique could help a blacksmith dramatically improve their skills and bolster their success rate, especially a technique as invaluable as the one Tang Wolin just learned. Yet, Zhen Hua had imparted it for free. It was this action that solidified a previous notion within Tang Wolin's heart, that Zhen Hua was a man worthy of respect and admiration. Zhen Hua put on a stern expression. Whose disciple are you? How old are you? These questions startled Tang Wolin. It was only now that he realized he had revealed himself. He had forgotten all about hiding his talents amidst his excitement. As such, before all these blacksmiths and the soul living divine blacksmith, there was no use lying anymore. My teacher is Mu Chen. I'm 14 this year. The moment the words left his mouth, the entire hall went into an uproar. He's only 14, and he can forge alloys. Zhen Hua's chest puffed as he listened, but a blank look crossed his face at the mere utter of Mu Chen's name. Where's your blacksmith's badge? What rank are you? Even as the president of the whole Blacksmiths Association, Zhen Hua couldn't help but harbor some doubts regarding Tang Wolin's blacksmith rank. With his discerning eyes, he picked out an amazing fact. The harmony rate of the star silver Tang Wolin forged was over 95%. I'm in the middle of an exam right now, so all of my possessions were confiscated. I'm a 5th rank blacksmith. He's a 5th rank. Everyone had guessed it, but hearing it out loud still brought out a tumult of gasps. He's a 14-year-old 5th rank blacksmith. He broke the record, and Zhen Hua's. At that, Zhen Hua smiled. That damn Mu Chen. I can't believe he was able to hide you so well. That bastard. President, can I take this piece of star silver? I can pay for it by taking missions. Zhen Hua frowned. No need for payment. It belongs to you in the first place. As promised, those hammers are yours now too. The cloud gold hammers that possess the tremor effect were priceless treasures. Still, Tang Wolin shook his head, something else more important weighing heavily in his mind. I don't need them since I already have a pair of hammers. But thank you, President. Oh, instead, could I trade them back for money? Trade for money. He wants to trade them for money. The clamoring crowd instantly went silent, shocked and frozen at the sight before them. The divine blacksmith was gifting his hammers to Tang Wolin, but he wanted to trade them in for money. They couldn't believe their eyes. Zhen Hua couldn't maintain his poker face anymore. His jaw dropped, utterly dumbstruck. Is he just here to cause trouble? That's gotta be it, right? Yeah. It has to be. That bastard Mu Chen must have sent him here to annoy me. He picked such a good time too, just when I decided to give a public lecture. That bastard. Fine. In front of such a large crowd, there was nothing else he could do. He signaled to one of the nearby staff. Follow me, he said to Tang Wolin as he approached the elevator. Hushed whispers broke out behind Zhen Hua, fanning around him like the petals of a flower, incoherent in their volume but clear in their overall sentiment all the same. Everyone in the hall had just witnessed the first appearance of this generation's greatest blacksmithing prodigy. Tang Wolin followed Zhen Hua into the elevator. Did Mu Chen tell you to come here? Now that they were alone in the elevator, Zhen Hua sought to confirm his suspicions. Once more did Tang Wolin shake his head, hanging it in embarrassment a moment later. Actually, I came here because I'm broke. The academy took all of our money to teach us how to be self-reliant and how to adapt to society. I need to earn some money with my own methods to complete my exam. A thought struck Zhen Hua, bright and piercing like a lightning bolt. Shrek Academy. Tang Wolin jerked his head up in astonishment. How do you know? Zhen Hua chuckled. No wonder Mu Chen resigned from the East Sea Blacksmiths Association to suffer in Shrek City. It was all for your sake. He sure knows how to keep a secret. I had always thought Little Zai was this generation's greatest blacksmithing prodigy, but you were hidden away all along. Tang Wolin scratched his head awkwardly. Teacher Mu, there was nothing I could do. This was all just a coincidence. He focused his attention back on Zhen Hua. President, I still have my exam to finish. Can you give me the money for the cloud gold hammers now? I promise I'll come visit you again in the future when I have time. The elevator cruised to a stop, the doors sliding open to the highest floor of the building. You're so young yet all that goes through your head is money. You're just like your teacher. I can't do anything without money. Tang Wolin mumbled. If you're not going to give me any, then I'll just go to some missions. But since I don't have my badge right now, the staff won't let me take on any. Can't you bend the rules a little for me? Zhen Hua let out a chuckle. Fine then, kid. I'll have someone bring over some money in a bit. Go accept some missions now. Just don't let anyone see you. Right, I wanted to ask you this. Since you're Mu Chen's disciple, did you also join Shrek's Blacksmiths Association? Yes. I have a teacher there too. Are you talking about that old madman? Zhen Hua asked. Tang Wolin nodded. Zhen Hua's expression darkened. After a few moments of silence, he spoke up. What do you need to do for your exam? Tang Wolin, without withholding a single detail, honestly explained the exam's requirements. Wow. Shrek Academy sure is strict. Well, I can help you find an opponent for Heaven Dou City. I can arrange transportation for you too. Tang Wolin beamed. Thank you, President. Zhen Hua flashed a warm smile of his own. You know, Mu Chen and I were actually apprenticed to the same master. I'm his senior brother. You don't have to call me President. Just call me Uncle Master. Uncle Master. Never had Tang Wolin heard such a thing from Mu Chen before. Uncle Master. Tang Wolin didn't hesitate. It was a wonderful thing to have a divine blacksmith as his Uncle Master. Zhen Hua nodded in approval. Take a rest here. I'll go arrange an opponent for you. Before he could do anything else, Tang Wolin spoke again. Uncle Master, I'm hungry. Tang Wolin had consumed a lot of blood essence during the alloy forging, and the one nearly chanced upon today was only meant for ordinary people. All right. I'll have someone bring you over to my personal dining hall. Zhen Hua smiled gently. He felt the embers of approval spark brighter and hotter in his chest. This kid isn't the least bit nervous. Not bad. As the president of the Blacksmiths Association, his personal dining hall only served the best of the best. Blacksmithing was an exhausting job, and especially so for a divine blacksmith. There were few people on the continent who ate better than him. Moreover, unlike most people, he had plenty of money. As a divine blacksmith, each of his products were worth more than their weight in gold. His wealth rivaled that of a small nation, because blacksmiths needed a lot of money in the early and middle stages of their career. Advancing was difficult. However, once they broke through the boundary of the sixth rank, the profits came pouring in. At that point, blacksmithing was undoubtedly the most lucrative profession. Nevertheless, Zhenhua's personal dining hall was quite small, only about 20 square meters in area. A plain, round table sat at the center of the room, further contributing to the image of austerity. When the dishes arrived, Tang Wuling was moved to tears. The first dish was a 1,000-year land dragon's tendon. This was one of the spirit items Tang Wuling had needed to break one of his previous seals. Yet Zhenhua treated it merely as food. To be fair, the piece of tendon was small. It had been stewed for a long time and was soft and sticky, a tantalizing aroma rising from it, ensnaring the senses with a single whiff. Indeed, one sniff and Tang Wuling's blood essence thrummed in excitement. He began to drool. The rice served with this tendon was the premium moonlight rice. It could only be found in extremely cold climates and took 3 years to grow and harvest. A small amount was produced each year. The grains of rice seemed to bend moonlight around it to produce a silvery aura and carried a refreshingly cold scent. When Tang Wuling took his first bite of this dish, the sweet flavor of the rice mixed with the warmth of the stewed tendon, blending together in a magical combination of textures and flavor. It was heaven for his taste buds. Chapter 426. Amazing. Amazing. That was the only thought that crossed Tang Wuling's mind as he gobbled down the rice and tendon. The plate of 1,000-year land dragon tendon disappeared in a flash, along with 6 bowls of moonlight rice. The chef, a wizened man in his 50s, had smiled happily as he watched Tang Wuling eat in the beginning, but by the end, his delight changed into astonishment. This kid really knows how to eat. Though his servings were a far cry from their usual abundance, the moonlight rice and dragon tendons were much more nutritious than ordinary food. A single grain of moonlight rice would be enough to satisfy an ordinary person for a day. Tang Wuling still craved for more after 6 bowls. Sensing Tang Wuling's blood essence growing stronger with each bite, the chef jokingly thought to himself that all of the food was being turned into blood essence. A while later, after soup was served and Tang Wuling finished his 7th bowl of rice, he looked up at the chef. Uncle, is there any more? The chef didn't know what kind of expression he should make. You can even eat more than the president. There's nothing left. Tang Wuling put down his bowl with a whimper. You're really still hungry? Yeah. My stomach is only a bit more than half full. Well, I'll be fine. But what is Uncle Master going to eat? The chef flashed Tang Wuling a thumbs up, then stood up and walked back to the small kitchen in the back. Wait a bit. Meanwhile, Zhenhua was busy pacing the floor in a different room as Tang Wuling had been stuffing his gut. Mu Chen, I can't believe you. He shouted into his soul communicator the moment the call connected, his voice an octave higher than usual. On the other end of the line, Mu Chen felt his heartbeat quicken. Is something wrong? What's going on? Zhenhua sneered. You have the nerve to ask me that. Are you telling me you didn't deliberately send your disciple here to stir up some trouble? Disciple? Mu Chen's pitch rose as well. Did you meet Wuling? Who else could I be talking about? Sarcasm dripped from Zhenhua's words. The line went silent. Say something. When did you pick up such an incredible kid? Zhenhua asked. The calm expression he had shown Tang Wuling was but a facade. It had taken all of his willpower from to hide the shock from his face. There was no way a divine blacksmith such as himself didn't understand the significance of a 14-year-old 5th-rank blacksmith. Tang Wuling had a sturdy foundation, good wits, and a godly talent for blacksmithing. All of this Zhenhua had discerned from Tang Wuling's handling of the cloud gold hammers. Tang Wuling was destined to become the next generation's divine blacksmith. As long as he grew steadily, this was inevitable. Of course, that meant he had to become a titled Douluo. However, it was much easier for blacksmiths to become titled Douluos than for combat-oriented soulmasters. They could simply use some heavenly treasures to boost them up to that level. Although this would result in an unstable foundation, they would still become a titled Douluo and have the necessary soul power for their path to a divine blacksmith. Aware of these facts, Zhenhua wasn't worried about Tang Wuling's growth as a soul master. He was one of the 10 richest people on the continent. He had more than enough resources for the items necessary to nurture a prodigy like Tang Wuling. The sole issue so far had been finding one. Don't even think about it. Mu Chen shouted back. Mu Chen, Zhenhua said gently. Mu Chen's laugh was thick with sarcasm, voice coming out rough from the other side of the line. Don't bother. I already know all about your tricks. Zhenhua chuckled. Weren't we once fellow apprentices? Yes, we were. But that has nothing to do with this. In fact, Mu Chen understood Zhenhua better than anyone else precisely because Zhenhua was his senior brother. Zhenhua ignored the frost practically spreading through his speakers. Junior brother. Don't you remember how we were back in the old days? We were praised as the 2 greatest prodigies of the blacksmithing world. We've been through thick and thin together. Just tell me, didn't I take care of you as your senior brother? But Mu Chen was an impenetrable fortress. Anything else is fine, but not my disciple. Didn't I let you have my beloved Yuan Bao back then? And now you have an adorable daughter thanks to that. What about me? I have no wife, and I never will. The only woman in my heart is Bao. Do you have any idea how much it pains me to make that decision? I don't really want a disciple. I want a son that can look after me as I age. Zhenhua cried, choking back sobs. Mu Chen went silent. Years ago, Zhenhua, Yuan Bao, and Mu Chen had been apprenticed to the same master together. Zhenhua was the eldest disciple, followed by Mu Chen and Yuan Bao in that order. Out of the trio, Yuan Bao was the only girl. She had a mischievous personality and, compared to the others, was a bit of a slacker in learning blacksmithing. Even so, she was the target of affection for her 2 senior brothers. As the 3 grew up together, so did their emotions for each other. But in the end, Zhenhua chose to dedicate his life to blacksmithing, and Yuan Bao ended up with Mu Chen. In a sense, Zhenhua truly had given her to Mu Chen. Blacksmithing had simply pulled ahead from the other important thing in his life, his beloved Yuan Bao. Still, Mu Chen felt guilty. He had no retort to Zhenhua. Eldest brother, are you crying? A gentle voice interjected through the communicator. A cold shiver traveled down Zhenhua's spine. Is that you, Bao? Eldest brother, how about I kick Mu Chen to the curb then run over to you? She said sweetly. No, it's fine. Zhenhua answered immediately. Junior sister, how could you say something like that? Mu Chen and I are brothers. I couldn't possibly. Then stop talking out of your ass. Don't call if you have nothing to say. Yuan Bao shouted. A moment later, the dial tone played. Zhenhua didn't know how to react to all this. On Mu Chen's side, he stared at his wife, stupefied. He had never seen his wife act so violently before. She was usually mild-tempered. Bao, are you feeling all right? Mu Chen rubbed her forehead. Yuan Bao took advantage of this and sat on his lap, throwing her arms around his neck in a tight embrace. All traces of her previous temper were wiped off the face of the earth. I'm fine. In fact, I'm great. My kindness is only meant for you though. Mu Chen looked at her curiously. What about eldest brother then? Yuan Bao snorted. I was just warning him not to use what happened back then to threaten you. I've already kept it a secret for so many years for his sake, but it looks like he doesn't care about saving some face. A blank look crossed Mu Chen's face. What do you mean? What secret? Yuan Bao snickered. Do you really think he fearlessly chose to devote himself to blacksmithing back then? You dummy. That's too naive. Eldest brother is really cunning. He had long since asked me to marry him by that time. You were so oblivious about it. Eldest brother is a good person, but he's too stubborn and ambitious. I couldn't love someone like that. I just wanted someone who I could have fun with. You might have been a bit dumb back then, but you were a lot more reliable than him. You only have me in your heart. If it had been him, then it would have been me and blacksmithing in his heart. And I'm sure blacksmithing would have still placed higher than me. Who would choose a guy like him? So I told him I liked you. After that, he went into seclusion. I didn't mention any of this before only because I wanted to spare him the embarrassment. Mu Chen was dumbstruck. At first, he couldn't believe what his wife was telling him, but as the seconds ticked by, the puzzle pieces started coming together. No wonder you chose me. You're definitely more suited for a laid-back lifestyle. You would never be able to devote your life to blacksmithing like Zhenhua did. You broke contact from a lot of people when we moved to East City too. Some people even think you died. Yuan Bao smiled. I like this sort of simple life. It's enough as long as I have you and Little Zai. Chapter 427. Ruby Shrimp. When Zhenhua returned to his personal dining hall, his expression was already back to normal. Tang Wuling stood up straight from his seat at the sound of the door opening. Uncle Master, he said. Zhenhua waved for him to sit back down. Are you done eating? Yes, I ate. All right, that's good, Zhenhua said. I just called your master to tell him you came over. He told me to take good care of you. I've also arranged an opponent for you. They'll be waiting for you in the Blacksmiths Association's sealed space. I'll record the match so you can use it as proof. Thank you, Uncle Master, Tang Wuling said. After eating the moonlight rice and dragon tendon, he felt his body swell with warmth. His blood essence bubbled within him, and his mind was sharp as a blade. He was in peak condition. No need to thank me. You're my junior, so this is only natural. So you're a student at Shrek Academy with 3 soul rings, right? Do you have any plans for the future? Zhenhua asked. Without skipping a beat, Tang Wuling replied, I want to become a battle armor master. Zhenhua cracked a smile. How ambitious. You know, I forged most of the metals used to make the battle armors at Shrek Academy. Next time I visit, how about I find you and give you some pointers? Yes, please. That would be awesome. Tang Wuling could hardly contain himself with excitement, not when a divine blacksmith had agreed to afford him guidance. It's settled then. Give me your number and I'll call you next time I'm in town. Zhenhua was a man of determination who reached the peak in his field. There had been more to his call with Chen than just as an avenue to vent his frustration. In fact, underneath the many layers of subtext and his own personal brand of care, he was also telling Chen that there was no use in hiding Tang Wuling anymore. Chen may be able to teach Tang Wuling soul refining, but teaching him how to heavenly refine was a different story. That was where Zhenhua came in. When that time came, things would be much easier for Tang Wuling under a divine blacksmith's watchful eye. Therefore, Zhenhua's current plan was to develop a good relationship with Tang Wuling, whom he had taken quite a liking to. Tang Wuling might be greedy, but greed was good motivation for a blacksmith. As long as Tang Wuling put in the work as a blacksmith, he would drown in money later on. At that moment, the kitchen door swung open, the chef carrying a platter as he passed through the doorway. Before the chef arrived at the dining table, Tang Wuling could already smell the tantalizing aroma wafting over from the platter. His eyes widened, mouth instantly watering. It was as if a wave of deliciousness had assaulted his nose. The strong aroma roused his blood essence far more than the previous dishes. What dish is it? The platter was half a meter in diameter. 6 humongous shrimps lay plump on its surface, and the heads were similarly gigantic. The shells were already peeled, revealing their glossy flesh, a bold shade of crimson. There were no seasonings or sauces to enhance their scent. The alluring aroma had come from these shrimp. What's the special occasion? Why did you bring out the ruby shrimp? You'd normally never do that. Zhenhua exclaimed. The chef snorted. Your mind is always elsewhere, so how could you appreciate a true culinary delicacy? This kid has got quite a stomach, and he loves my food from the bottom of his heart. I'm cooking this for him. You're lucky to have met him. Tang Wuling was surprised by how the chef treated Zhenhua. Despite there not being a single shred of soul power radiating from the chef's body, they gave off the image of being equals. Zhenhua chuckled. Count me a lucky man then. My little nephew disciple is so amazing. But aren't you suffering a loss here too? In a sense, isn't he one of your people? The chef smiled, mischief dancing in his eyes. Did you think I couldn't tell? Kid, eat up. These are ruby shrimp, also known as blood shrimp. They're one of the bizarre creatures living 3 kilometers below the blood trench. Their blood essence is similar to that of humans. I think you should be able to handle eating 3 of them, which meant that the other 3 were clearly meant for Zhenhua. Thank you. Tang Wuling rose from his seat and bent into a slight bow to the chef. Never had he come across the name ruby shrimp before, but he was certain that it was an absolute delicacy. The last fibers of his self-restraint snapped. He grabbed the shrimp by its tail and popped it into his mouth. The meat was sweet and tender, a hint of fruitiness dancing at the edges. When he pressed his teeth together for a chew, warm, flavorful juices gushed out of the shrimp and trickled down his throat. His body submerged into a pool of comfort. He could hear a buzz permeating his mind as his skin blushed red. A burst of warmth spread through him and the golden-veined pattern of the golden dragon king surfaced all over his body. His blood essence surged. Without any conscious control, it flowed in reverse, following the path set by golden dragon chucks the heavens. At the sight of Tang Wuling's golden skin and raging blood essence, Zhenhua and the chef froze, stupefied. When a golden soul ring made its debut, the chef's jaw finally dropped. His eyes were glued to Tang Wuling. Sucking in a deep breath, Tang Wuling looked within himself to inspect his body. He was astonished to find his blood essence attacking the 4th seal on the golden dragon king. Wave after wave of blood essence crashed against the seal, wearing it down bit by bit, and the seal flashed brilliantly each time. Concerned at the scene, Zhenhua shot the chef a doubtful look. Is he digesting it immediately? Doesn't it usually take a whole year to digest ruby shrimp? The chef shrugged. I don't know. You're the one who brought this little monster here. Zhenhua smiled. Yeah, he really is a little monster. He's from Shrek Academy. Once the chef heard that fact, a light flashed in his eyes, his cheeks beginning to twitch. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have fed him the shrimp. But his body really is interesting. You weren't wrong to say he's one of my people. For over 10 minutes Tang Wuling's blood essence continued to bubble within him before gradually settling down. In the end, the seal still held, but the feverish blood essence flaring within him was undeniable. It was as if his entire body had been refined, and he felt utterly comfortable. His soul power surged. 2 months worth of cultivation added on after just a few moments of eating. Thank you, senior, Tang Wuling said to the chef respectfully. There were only 2 shrimp left. The other 3 had already been eaten by Zhenhua. The chef shook his head. This is an opportunity for you. If you want to take me as your master and eat food like this every day, then leave Shrek Academy. It's your decision. Tang Wuling was taken aback. The chef's food left a deep impression on him. If he could eat food of such quality every day, then his cultivation would progress by leaps and bounds. He wouldn't have to worry about his blood essence for the first 9 seals either. That said, he was also a person of integrity. Senior, thank you for your offer, but I'm a student of Shrek Academy. I can't leave just yet. If you're still willing to take me in after I graduate, then when that time comes. The chef waved in dismissal. He stood up in one brisk motion and returned to the kitchen. Witnessing such a strange scene, Tang Wuling turned to Zhenhua for guidance. Uncle Master, is that chef uncle angry? Chef. He. He's not angry. He just knows he has no hope. People from Shrek aren't fools. Would they really let a talent like you graduate from the outer court? You're definitely bound for the inner court. He knows he doesn't stand a chance, so there was no point in staying. Here. These last 2 shrimp are yours. Kid, I've got to say, your stomach is amazing. Tang Wuling quickly took the remaining 2 shrimp and threw them into his mouth. His blood essence surged once more and assaulted the 4th seal. However, his body's ability to handle blood essence had improved, so the attack on the seal wasn't as powerful as the first time. Even so, Tang Wuling could feel the 4th seal growing slack, but he had no plans of breaking the 4th seal right then. Despite having enough soul power to do so, he also had to take into account the amount of the golden dragon king's power he could absorb after the seal was broken. His body wasn't ready yet. Plus, there was still time to find the spirit items old Tang had informed him. Zhenhua waited until Tang Wuling finished digesting the remaining shrimp before standing up from his seat and walking to the door. Let's go then. I'll bring you to battle your opponent. Afterward you can be on your way to finish your exam. There was still one thing of interest, though. Uncle Master, who was that chef uncle? Tang Wuling asked. Chapter 428, Temptation. He's just an eccentric guy. I'm his only friend. Well, in any case, I'm not sure if you'll ever meet him again, but I'll tell you this. Zhenhua motioned for Tang Wuling to lean closer, covering part of his mouth with a cupped hand. He doesn't have a good relationship with Shrek Academy, and he doesn't like dealing with them. Zhenhua's ambiguous words left Tang Wuling puzzled, but he didn't think much about it. Right now, he had to focus on finishing his exam. A spatial door opened before them. The door reminded him of the one to the Spirit Soul Tower at the Spirit Pagoda. He hadn't expected the Blacksmiths Association would also have such a space. Are you familiar with this? Zhenhua noticed the glint in Tang Wuling's eyes. Tang Wuling nodded. Yeah, the Spirit Pagoda headquarters has a door just like this. Yes, they're similar, but different. Apart from Shrek Academy, no other society can compare with the Spirit Pagoda's resources. However, our Blacksmiths Association also has a few tricks up its sleeve, and the sealed space is used for storing important treasures and classified materials. You could call it our warehouse. Only high-level members of the association can enter it. Once you become a Saint Blacksmith, you'll gain access to it too. The key is a Saint Blacksmith's badge. Saint Blacksmiths were 7th rank blacksmiths. Tang Wuling yearned for the day he could finally step on that plane of existence. Uncle Master, is it hard to soul refine? Tang Wuling asked. Zhenhua smiled and shook his head. It's both hard and not hard at the same time. You have a strong foundation and good wits, but you're lacking in soul power. I can help you with that, though. I have many treasures that can boost your cultivation. Would you like to go that route? Tang Wuling stared at him in astonishment. Uncle Master, what do you mean? Zhenhua chuckled. I can see it in your eyes that you already understand. Don't you feel embarrassed keeping up an act? Tang Wuling scratched his head, showing a meek smile. Of course you would want to get his hands on some treasures. If you use treasures to boost your cultivation, I guarantee you'll become a titled Douluo and divine blacksmith within 15 years. However, I must warn you, your foundation won't be firm and you'll likely never advance into a hyper Douluo. Still, that should be enough for you in my opinion. Battle armor will improve your strength anyway. As long as you get a set of 4-word battle armor and become a titled Douluo, you'll stand at the very peak of the world. Zhenhua said. Uncle Master, I've always been curious about that. If battle armor can make a titled Douluo as powerful as a limit Douluo, why do they still continue to cultivate to become hyper Douluos? Zhenhua sighed. They're not quite the same. You'll understand once you reach that level. Even if you compared 2 limit Douluo or 2 titled Douluo with the same amount of soul power, the combat strength of the one who boosted their advancement through the use of treasures and the one who advanced normally would differ. And more importantly, only by relying on their own strength can they hope to ascend to godhood. No one has ascended in the last 10,000 years, but who doesn't wish to ascend like the founder of the Tang sect, Tang San, or the spirit pagoda founder, Spirit Douluo who are you are? Think about this carefully. If you choose to accept my offer, then I'll nurture you into a divine blacksmith by the time you're 30. You'll be the youngest divine blacksmith in all of history and stand at the world summit. However, you'll also be turning your back on the path of battle, foregoing the mysteries of the world. A moment of silence slipped by. Uncle Master, Tang Wuling eventually said, can you give me some time to consider it? Zhenhua's offer was enticing. Tang Wuling's cultivation wasn't advancing quickly, but when it came to blacksmithing, he was blessed by the heavens. If he became a divine blacksmith and a titled Douluo, he could easily proceed to become a 4-word battle armor master as well. However, he had to consider if this was what he truly wanted. With this sudden choice thrust upon him, he didn't know what to do. Zhenhua smiled. Don't worry about it too much. I didn't know what to do back when I was your age too. Just pick whatever route you think is best for you. And even if you choose to cultivate with your own efforts, you still have a good chance of becoming a divine blacksmith. Consider your options carefully, and when you make your decision, make sure you do so with the resolve to see it through to the end with no regrets. There are countless treasures in this world, but there are none that can cure regret. Thank you, Uncle Master. The two stepped through the spatial doorway and entered the sealed space. It was enormous, utterly different from that of the Spirit Soul Tower. Truly a gigantic warehouse. Countless doors lined the perimeter and stood all around, leading to unknown spaces. With a wave of his hand, Zhenhua brought Tang Wuling to the center of the space. Jarring was the brisk, instantaneous movement for Tang Wuling. Zhenhua placed a palm upon a door and entered with a gentle push. Inside was a large hall brimming with energy. A barrier created an arena in the middle of the hall, and a man in his 20s waited in the center. The man bowed when he caught sight of Zhenhua. President. Zhenhua cracked a slight smile. Prepare to begin. Wuling, let me introduce you. This is one of our association's guardians, Shi Yinling. Please take care of each other. Hello, I'm Tang Wuling. Although Shi Yinling couldn't be called handsome, he had a refreshing aura to him, and examined Tang Wuling with curious eyes. What sort of background does this kid have that the president would recommend him to have a match with me? Zhenhua withheld from him details about Tang Wuling. All he let slip from his lips was that he had found a good opponent to him. Shi Yinling had never expected his opponent would be just a kid. I'm Shi Yinling. Please advise me. Without another word, Shi Yinling retreated a few steps. He extended his right hand and gestured for Tang Wuling to make his move. Despite his youth, Tang Wuling had plenty of battle experience. He took a few paces forward to face Shi Yinling in a battle stance. 2 yellow and 2 purple soul rings rose from beneath Shi Yinling. Just as Tang Wuling had requested, Zhenhua found him an opponent stronger than him. Shi Yinling was 20 years old this year, and a rank 43 soul ancestor. As Tang Wuling strode forward, 3 purple soul rings rose past his feet. The sight startled Shi Yinling. Begin, Zhenhua declared. In a split second, Tang Wuling jumped into action. Rather than summoning his blue silver grass, he stomped on the ground and shot forward like a cannonball. He didn't want to waste any more time. Shi Yinling took a step back. His lungs swelled with air as he let out a piercing bird screech. A pair of wings unfurled from his back and a green aura spread throughout his body as he ascended into the air. His martial soul is a flying type. It's the eagle. Tang Wuling instantly judged. As a student of Shrek Academy, he could identify a martial soul at ease. Tang Wuling leapt after him. Unfortunately, he only reached 8 meters into the air while Shi Yinling hovered at a height of 10. Seeing that, Shi Yinling relaxed his guard a bit, confident in his ability to take the win. The moment Tang Wuling's 3 purple soul rings had materialized, apprehension chewed at the edges of his calm. But as soon as he was up in the air, his doubts had been extinguished, especially when Tang Wuling could not reach him in a leap. When facing a flying soul master, one of the greatest mistakes a soul master who couldn't fly could make was jumping into the air to engage. At that point, they were practically sitting ducks. Flying soul masters boasted exceptional speed in the air. That said, Shi Yinling's confident smile froze in the next instant. Chapter 429, True Strength. Shooting a golden vine at the ground, Tang Wuling bounced upward using it as a spring. His sudden acceleration brought him in front of Shi Yinling in a flash. Not good. Shi Yinling was a bit slow to react. He pushed his hands forward as soon as he snapped free of surprise, stopping his ascent. His wings took on a sharp metallic shine as he brandished them and used Eagle Wing Slash. The wings came slicing down on Tang Wuling's shoulder. At the same time, Shi Yinling circulated his soul power within his body to keep him afloat in the air. Eagle Wing Slash was his second soul skill. Yet, he didn't dare underestimate Tang Wuling, his third soul ring lighting up as a result. His third soul skill was linked with his fourth, and eclipsed soul skills of the same level in aerial combat. As such, he was convinced after blocking Tang Wuling's charge victory would swiftly follow. However, his plans were dashed in an instant. Tang Wuling scrunched up his body in midair as the wings bore down on him, hands shooting out to deflect the attack. He stared Shi Yinling straight in the eye, his irises flashing purple. Blue silver grass sprang out of the ground and curled around Shi Yinling like an iron chain. With his opponent restrained, Tang Wuling whipped out his right fist for a powerful knockout punch. Although Shi Yinling was restrained, his arms were still mobile, extended in front of him in an effort to meet Tang Wuling's attack. Unable to use his third soul skill in his current position, he had no choice but to divert Tang Wuling first. Tang Wuling didn't withdraw his fist as those 2 arms dropped down. His fist continued its trajectory, swift and brisk, easily evading Shi Yinling's parry. In that hairbreadth of a moment, golden scales glimmered, popping into existence on his arm. Shi Yinling was stunned at the sight of the transformation. The golden claw reached his chest in an instant. I'm finished. His mind went blank, but rather than the scalding pain of claw tearing through flesh, he felt a more subtle sensation. The claw lightly bumped him and disrupted his internal soul power circulation. Then Tang Wuling grabbed the blue silver grass binding him and yanked, throwing him against the ground like a rag doll, the earth crackling beneath him upon impact. Tang Wuling landed next to Shi Yinling and released him from his restraints, then took 2 steps back. Excuse me. Shi Yinling was speechless. I didn't even get a chance to fight. He was frustrated by how helpless he had been throughout the entire battle. He had only been able to use 1 soul skill before losing, the battle having ended too quickly. It pained him to swallow the bitter pill of reality. He had lost. Admitting it wasn't easy, especially since he hadn't been able to work out Tang Wuling's martial soul. Zhenhua had stood by, watching from a distance with cold detachment. Even for him, the battle had ended too quickly. A few moves and it was settled. Tang Wuling hadn't wasted any strength, each move wrapped tightly in a blanket of precision and consideration. Shi Yinling thought he hadn't had a chance to show off his true strength, but in Zhenhua's eyes, it was Tang Wuling who had been reserved. Are all students from Shrek Academy this strong? He had thought that with a 1 ring difference, Tang Wuling would have struggled a bit. He was jolted out of his thoughts by the sound of Tang Wuling's voice, the young man approaching him with steady steps. Thank you for helping me, Uncle Master. Amen. Let's go then. Zhenhua patted Tang Wuling's shoulder. Tang Wuling dropped one final glance at Shi Yinling and a curt nod before following Zhenhua out. Meanwhile, Shi Yinling still refused to accept the outcome of the match. However, as one of the Blacksmiths Association's guardians, it would be too impudent to request a rematch in front of the president. If he knew Tang Wuling was the class president of Shrek Academy's first grade, his attitude would have been far different. Wuling, I never would have thought you would be so strong. Not bad. Since this is the case, I don't recommend you take me up on my offer. You're still young. You can just wait until you're 20 before you decide. And at that time, if you still don't have 5 rings, then I would suggest the route I presented to you. Once you're boosted to 6 rings, you can go the rest of the way with your own efforts. Your soul power is very strong, but it's impossible to heavenly refine without becoming a titled Douluo. Zhenhua said. Understood. Before Tang Wuling left, Zhenhua handed him a card containing 1 million federal credits. It was enough for the rest of his trip. Zhenhua also threw a storage ring into the mix, one much better than his previous view. The storage space was larger with many compartments for easy organization. In Zhenhua's own words, this was a gift, and it contained everything that he exchanged the cloud gold hammers for. Tang Wuling peeked inside the ring. Despite not containing money, there were 18 different types of valuable metals stored within. 12 of them he had only heard of but had never seen before. There were also over a dozen bottles of the alloy forging catalyst refined by Zhenhua. Zhenhua didn't make a fuss about the gift, and neither did Tang Wuling. He didn't see Tang Wuling out, but he did direct him to use the back door. Tang Wuling's performance had been too outrageous. Everyone was still talking about him. Tang Wuling would draw too much attention if he left through the front, especially if he was escorted by the president himself. After Tang Wuling stepped out through the back, as he was about to call a taxi, he paused at the side of Wu Zhangkong. Teacher Wu, he greeted. Wu Zhangkong's expression remained icy, not a hint of surprise. I knew you would be here. Tang Wuling rushed to his side, and then, after thinking over, he threw the hand with the ring behind him. I got this ring after I left campus. You can't say I'm cheating. Wu Zhangkong eyed him. From now on, I will be following you closely until the end of the exam. Just do whatever you have to without minding me. Tang Wuling was taken aback. Aren't you supposed to be watching from the shadows? Could it be that? Wu Zhangkong furrowed his brow. An evil soul master appeared. The terrorist attack you foiled was arranged by that same person. I already notified the academy, and they've dispatched more teachers to come protect the examinees. I will be watching over you personally. Due to the limited number of teachers, however, you will need to act as a group. He pointed to the side as he spoke. Tang Wuling tracked his gesture to see familiar faces. Yu Yue, Yu Xinglin, Xu Shaoan, Xu Lizzie, and She stood a distance away, smiling brightly. Although they missed Tang Wuling's train, they boarded the very next one with Wu Zhangkong, arriving at Heaven Dou City as a group. They were following the same route after all. When Wu Zhangkong had lost Tang Wuling, the gears in his head spun in overdrive. Penniless yet possessing such high blacksmithing skills, Tang Wuling was most likely to be found near the local blacksmiths association. Hi guys. Tang Wuling beamed. His mood soared. After visiting the Blacksmiths Association, he no longer felt guilty over the security captain's death. Xu Lizzie took the initiative to walk over. He sized Tang Wuling up, then sniffed. Astonishment filled his face. Did you eat something good? Tang Wuling's jaw dropped. How did you know? Xu Lizzie gave a toothy grin. Us food types have an amazing sense of smell. Come on. Hurry up and tell me what you ate. What's the use in telling you? It's not like you can eat it now. I don't want to make you hungry. Wu Zhangkong interjected. Have you had a match yet? Tang Wuling nodded. All right. None of the others have finished yet. You guys decide on your plan. Don't mind me. I'll just follow along quietly. Tang Wuling understood that Wu Zhangkong was there to protect him, and a soft warmth rushed his heart. He turned to his friends and smiled. It looks like we're together again. Where do you guys want to go to find some opponents? Let's head to the Spirit Pagoda, Yu Yue said, her eyes shining as she looked at him. The Spirit Pagoda. Tang Wuling's smile flashed even brighter. That's right. There's tons of soul masters over there. Yu Yue has a high status there too, so it should be easy to find some opponents. Yeah. Let's go. Heaven Dou City was bustling with activity. It didn't take them long to find a taxi, and soon they were on their way to the local Spirit Pagoda. In the car, Tang Wuling let Wu Zhangkong view the video of his fight with Shi Yinling and sent him the file soon after. Wu Zhangkong did not comment on the battle. With that, Tang Wuling had cleared his first city. Chapter 430. These trees were planted by me. Heaven Dou City's local Spirit Pagoda was only second to the headquarters in Shrek City. It towered over the surrounding buildings, breathtaking in its height. Currently, Xu Lizzie and Tang Wuling were walking together. I can feel that your blood essence is thicker than before. It's definitely because of whatever you ate. I can't believe you won't tell me. Xu Lizzie cried. Aren't we brothers? Fine. I give. It was ruby shrimp. Although the 1,000-year land dragon tendon was potent as well, it couldn't compare with the ruby shrimp. At the sound of those words, Xu Lizzie trembled. Ruby shrimp? Where did you get it? Tang Wuling looked at him suspiciously. Someone else gave it to me. Do you know of it? It wasn't until it was right in front of me that I even heard of its name. It's the ruby shrimp from the blood trench, right? MN. Tang Wuling nodded. Xu Lizzie was dumbstruck. After gathering himself for a few moments, he spoke. Are you sure that's what you had? All soul devices malfunction near the blood trench because of its bizarre magnetic field. The trench is also several kilometers deep and teeming with soul beasts. It's known as one of the world's forbidden areas. That ruby shrimp you said you had are only found in the blood trench. Even 4-word battle armor masters have trouble retrieving them. Are you sure that's what you ate? Tang Wuling had guessed that the ruby shrimp was precious, but he had never expected it to be to this degree. It was a delicacy that could only be obtained by 4-word battle armor masters. It was no wonder that even a divine blacksmith like Zhenhua regarded it as precious. Who gave it to you? I want to try it too. Xu Lizzie sulked. I don't know his name, Tang Wuling said. He's my Uncle Master's friend. There aren't any left anyway. Or do you want me to puke it out for you to try? I think there's still a bit left in my stomach. You're disgusting. Yi Xinglin, who was walking ahead of him, shot a dirty look in his direction. Xu Lizzie went silent with gloom. He was depressed that he missed out on such an experience. They soon reached the Spirit Pagoda, their chatter cold to an attentive quiet. Wu Zhangkong followed behind them without a word, simply watching them with his cold eyes. Tang Wuling glanced at his teacher. The thought of Wu Zhangkong's lover buried in the cemetery of Heaven Dou City lingered in his mind. Wu Zhangkong returned his glance with a sharp look. Then his eyes drifted elsewhere. Gu Yue flashed her ID and was immediately admitted inside. She led them up to a conference room on the 3rd floor. Before long, a middle-aged man entered the room. Hello, Miss Gu Yue, the middle-aged man said. Hello. Gu Yue stood and nodded to him. The man made an awkward face. I've passed on your request to the rest of the staff, but it would break too many rules. We're an organization that serves soul masters after all. We can't just ask visitors to have a match. It would be too troubling for them. We have no duty to do that either. Gu Yue furrowed her brow. Is there any other way? The man shook his head. I asked the higher-ups, but I'm afraid it's impossible. The Heavenly Phoenix Douluo called and said you had to handle this yourself. We aren't to lend you any help. Gu Yue went silent for a moment. Teacher knows about this. The man smiled meekly but remained silent. Okay. Gu Yue nodded, then turned to her companions. Let's go. They followed Gu Yue out in silence, Tang Wuling jogging to her side in the process. It's fine. We'll just find some other way, and if we can't, we can just go to the Blacksmiths Association. I'm sure my Uncle Master will help us. Gu Yue shook her head. That would be too inconvenient and take too much time. I have a plan. Yi Xinglin pursed her lips. Are you saying? The two shared a glance, eyes lighting up in mutual understanding. Tang Wuling felt a chill travel down his spine, apprehension creeping up on him. Sun Ranyu left the Spirit Pagoda in high spirits. His body felt light with his new and suitable spirit soul. At 35 years old, he possessed 2 spirit souls before this one. Due to his average martial soul, his spiritual power wasn't particularly strong, and he had only been able to sustain 2 spirit souls that allowed him 4 soul rings. After devoting blood and sweat to cultivating, he finally reached rank 50. He knew that he had no hopes of ever reaching 7 rings, but he still wished to obtain a spirit soul capable of taking him that far. At the very least, he would be acknowledged within the world of soul masters. He saved up money by living frugally until he scraped enough to visit the Spirit Pagoda. Luck smiled upon him. He obtained a good purple spirit soul infused with it, becoming stronger than before. From then on, he was a genuine 5-ring soul king. Not to mention, he could now boast a 1,000-year soul ring. Soul kings were quite respected among soul masters. Furthermore, he was a mecha pilot. With a strong spirit soul fused with his mecha, he now had the strength to reach the rank of lieutenant colonel and command a squadron of 30 mechas. Sun Ranyu was filled with excitement as he thought about his future. His hard work was finally paying off. Even if he couldn't become a soul sage, becoming a soul emperor was not beyond reach. Once he stepped into that level, he would have the qualifications to be promoted to a colonel. He would be a decently high-ranking officer in the military at that time. Then he could settle down with a good wife. As he entertained these thoughts, a few figures snuck up in front of him, dodging his peripheral vision. This mountain is mine. These trees were planted by me. If you want to pass, you must pay the mountain toll. Sun Ranyu could not believe his eyes. 4 strangers stood in a line in front of him, forming a makeshift barrier between him and the path. Confused, he took some time to scan the area, confirming he had just exited the Spirit Pagoda. What mountain are they talking about? What trees? When he shifted his attention back to his obstructors, he was taken aback by their youthful appearances. The last vestiges of baby fat clung to their cheeks, skin soft and tender. It was obvious they were no more than teenagers. He could even pick out a young fatty crouching and another teen covering his face. What are you kids doing? You shouldn't be playing jokes around the spirit pagoda. Hurry up and go home. Sun Ranyu shouted with the imposing airs of a military officer. Dou Yue had been the first one to recite their mugging play. The instant Tang Wulin had heard it, he turned his back to them and facepalmed. Similarly, Shu Lizzie had crouched down into a ball immediately, turning his back to them as did his best to fight back his laughter. Meanwhile, Wu Zhangkong stood far off in the distance, his figure barely visible. Indeed, this was Dou Yue's plan. It was simple. All they needed to do was fight a soul master stronger than them, and there were plenty of people who fit the bill at the Spirit Pagoda. So, they would threaten the people that came out of the Spirit Pagoda and force them into a fight. After beating their opponent, they would hightail it out of there. The only issue was finding someone stronger than them. As for their mountain bandit charade, it just piqued her fancy. Yi Xinglan, Shi, and Xu Shaoan had shouted the last 3 verses in that order. Shi and Xu Shaoan grinned with excitement. What now? Yi Xinglan asked Dou Yue. We get started. Dou Yue said as soul rings rose from beneath her. After spending a lot of time with Dou Yue, Yi Xinglan had found her quite compatible, and the sentiment was reciprocated. She charged forward the moment she saw Dou Yue's soul rings, the Star God sword manifesting in her hands as she ran. She slashed the air, shooting out a sword beam towards Sun Ranyu. The sudden attack startled Sun Ranyu. The military experience engraved in him took hold, and he subconsciously retreated a step. He summoned his martial soul. A thin mist spread from his body, condensing into a liquid shield and deflecting the sword beam in the nick of time. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.